You are tuning into Mad Genius Live. Stick around to find out how that caramel got on the cover of Food and Wine magazine. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Mad Genius Live. My name is Justin Chapple. I'm Food and Wine's culinary director. I'm also the resident Mad Genius here. And you can catch me every Thursday morning right here on Mad Genius Live across the internet, the World Wide Web, if you will. Today is a fun day because, well, I'm hanging out like I always do in the kitchen, but I'm also here because I'm getting to present the March issue of Food and Wine magazine, which has just hit the shelves. If you haven't gotten it yet, or if you're not a subscriber, go on to foodandwine.com and make sure you subscribe or pick it up on the newsstands now. We're very excited about this issue because it's our photography issue. And when I was deciding what I was going to do on today's show, I wanted to take a little inspiration from a really fun story that we have. Ladies and gentlemen, live television. I almost had an explosion of heavy cream, but I got it. So I wanted to highlight a story that we have in our March issue. It's called Cooks and Shooters. We work with incredible food photographers every day, and so now we have a chance to not only show their images in our magazine, but we're able to talk about them and who they are as people. And in this case, I'm actually featuring a recipe from the story. It's for a flan, and it's from Romulo Llanes, who is a San Francisco-based photographer, food photographer. He's incredibly talented, and his flan was so delicious that it ended here on the cover of Food and Wine magazine. But that's funny because many of his recipes have graced the covers of many food magazines. The reason why I wanted to share it with you is not only because it's delicious, but it's because it's genius. And there's two really cool things about this that I want to talk about. The first one is it's a burnt caramel flan. So you make a typical caramel, but just when you think it's done, just when you think it has that perfect amber color, you're going to let it go just a little bit further until it looks almost burnt. And that's going to give it this really rich flavor, this really nutty flavor that is going to balance really well with the custard. Another really genius thing about this recipe is that it uses a deep dish pie plate. And I just think that's really cool because a lot of the flan recipes out there, you need a special ramekin or you need some sort of fluted tart pan. But in this case, Romulo uses an everyday pie plate. And as I like to say here on Mad Genius Live, it's genius because it's simple. And that is a simple piece of equipment that everyone should have in their kitchen. Okay, so I have my caramel going. This is 1.5 cups of sugar. So I had to start it before the show went live because it takes a little while. It takes about 10 minutes to make. You can see here that for the most part, a lot of it's dissolved and kind of already started to caramelize. But I'm just gonna give it a little mix because I actually turned off the caramel before we went live and it kind of solidified. So I'm doing some damage control here to try to bring it back to a nice liquid form, which is a little tricky when you're working with sugars. But while that goes, I'm gonna go ahead and get the custard forming. So if we're gonna move over here to my handy dandy glass mixing bowl, and I'm gonna go ahead. So most flans, or any flan that I've made has always incorporated one of my favorite ingredients in the whole entire world, which is sweetened condensed milk. So, and this recipe calls for a whole can of it. Most of the time when you buy sweetened condensed milk, it will actually have a flan recipe on it, right on the back. But I like to use this for everything from making DIY truffles to, pretty much anything. Adding it to whipped cream, making almost instant ice cream using it. And I'm just gonna go ahead and add it to a mixing bowl here. And I'm gonna make this, but I might have to stop in like 1 second because once that caramel's ready, I'm gonna have to go back to it because the one thing you wanna do with caramel is keep your eye on it, trust me. But if you're at home and you're just hanging out at the stove, it's actually really not hard to make. You just add it to a skillet. I'm using a large skillet here because it was 1.5 cups of sugar. And you just cook it over kind of moderate heat or a little maybe moderately high heat until it starts to melt. And then once it starts to melt, you're gonna kind of swirl it. I'm using a spoon here, but at home, you're gonna wanna just kind of shake the pan and give the pan a swirl, and that's gonna be the best way, that's gonna be the easiest way to get it to form nice and smooth. Okay, so I've got a can of sweetened condensed milk here. And I'm gonna go ahead and add 5 eggs to it. get this going here. I could have had these cracked already, and then I would have saved you guys a little bit of time, but it's all right. And I like to crack my eggs on a flat surface, which actually prevents the eggshell from kind of piercing the whites or the yolks. Just like that. And let me get rid of this little guy here. And then I'm going to take my whisk and just break up the yolks a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and add 3 cups of whole milk, which sounds like a lot, but we're making a deep dish flan here. Just like that, and you want to just make sure you mix it really well. Like that, and I'm going to go ahead and I almost lost it. I was like looking around. I was like, what did I do with the vanilla bean? But it was disguised on the cover of a magazine, as Madonna would say. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and take a little knife. Now I'm using real vanilla bean here. They look like this, if you've never seen them. They come sometimes in jars. They sometimes come in bags. And what you do is just take a small knife, and you just want to, let me move this out of the way. You're just going to want to cut right down the middle, like this, because you want to get to the center of it, which is packed with all sorts of seeds. And then just go ahead and separate the 2 sides. Oops, I guess I didn't go through. And then just use the flat side of the knife to scrape all the seeds out of, you can see that here, out of the pod. And just add it to your bowl, do both sides. And something that I like to tell people to do, because it's mad genius, but also it's very smart, is to actually save the pods once you've taken all the seeds out. And if you just put this into a jar of sugar, you'll make vanilla sugar, or that's actually, you can use it to actually make vanilla extract, homemade vanilla extract. So you just put it into a little glass bottle and add some bourbon or add some vodka or another kind of alcohol, and you just let it hang out in there. And every time you open a vanilla bean, you just put the empty pod right into the same bottle. And then in a few months, you have homemade vanilla extract. It's really great. So I use the vanilla bean here, but one of the things you can do if you don't have fresh vanilla beans is you can actually just use vanilla extract, pure vanilla extract. I wouldn't recommend the imitation stuff because it doesn't have the really delicious flavor. All right, let me get this caramel going. All right, so once it gets to this really, like, basically burnt color, that's why it's called a burnt caramel flan, you know it's ready. And the one thing that I'm getting that you're not getting is that it's incredibly, incredibly aromatic. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this off, and you can see it just starts to smoke. And you're going to pour it right into your deep dish pie plate. You want to make sure that it's on a towel or a trivet or something like that because it's going to get really hot. And one thing you want to be really careful of is to not touch the caramel. It is literally just melted sugar, and it's very hot. You're making candy here, ladies and gentlemen, so you want to be really careful. There you go. And what I like to do is just kind of swirl it around just a little bit, make sure it's nice and even, but this caramel there's a lot of caramel here. You have 1.5 cups of sugar, so I think it coats the bottom really nicely. And then what you're gonna do, I'm just gonna move this. You're gonna let this hang out for about 20 minutes. And after about 20 minutes, you're gonna get this, which is just basically, I mean, you could see right through it. And you see how it's hardened? This is rock hard caramel here. So, I mean, and it really just took 20 minutes to get to that point. And now this is gonna be the foundation of a really awesome flan. So I'm gonna put that there. And I'm gonna bring over a roasting pan because we're gonna create a water bath. Now, normally, when you do this, you're gonna wanna actually put the pan in the oven, in the preheated oven. You're gonna wanna have the water in there, and you're gonna wanna have your pie plate in there. And you wanna basically do everything I'm about to do here, but you're gonna wanna do it in the oven. And the reason I'm doing it here is just to show you. But you wanna kind of assemble this little water bath in the oven just because it's a little easier than carrying everything across the kitchen. So you're gonna add water to the roasting pan. So it's about 3/4 of an inch deep. And that's because when you put your pie plate in it with your caramel, it's gonna hang out. And what the water is going to do is help the custard, you know, the eggs and the vanilla and the milk and that whole custard mixture. It's going to help it cook really evenly, and that's really important to a really delicious, perfectly cooked flan. So now I'm going to go ahead and pour this in right on top of the caramel. Just like that. That is a full flan, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that. Okay, let me open my oven. And I'm going to carefully bring it right over, stick it in my 350-degree oven. Whoa, whoa. You can see why it's better to do this all in the oven so you don't spill it. Although I did that pretty successfully, if I must say so myself. All right, so that's going to go in a 350-degree oven. It's going to be in there for a little under an hour. And what you're looking for is the outside of the flan to be set, but the middle, you still want to be slightly jiggly, and that's how you know it's ready. So once that's done, you're going to take it out of the water bath. You're going to let it sit for 2 hours at room temperature until it's cooled completely, and then you're going to pop it in the fridge overnight. I have one already made. Let me go ahead and pull it out. And I mean, just looking at it like this, you could see how genius this is, because typically you have, you know, 6 or 8 little ramekins, and we are making Romulo's gigantic burnt caramel flan. Okay, we're going to invert this onto a platter because I want to show you how cool this is. First thing I'm going to do is take either a small offset spatula, or you can use a small paring knife, and you're just going to run it along the edge here to just kind of loosen it. And I could already tell that on this side it's really loose because the caramel's starting to pop up. You'll see, I mean, you could see the color of it start to seep onto the custard. Okay, this is really nerve-wracking that I'm doing this on live video, but we're gonna go for it. Okay, are we ready? I'm gonna flip it. We're either gonna get caramel everywhere or we're not. Yes. Look at this. All right, let me use my little. Holy smokes, look at this. It's like a burnt caramel lake on top of a delicious silky custard. I'm gonna move this right here. I mean, look at how beautiful that is. Is that not the most perfect flan you've ever seen? And Romulo takes it one step further because he then tops it with a homemade, well, a whipped cream that he spikes with aged rum, which I'm gonna add here. So I've got 2 cups of heavy whipping cream. I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of aged rum. Romulo likes to use Havana Club rum, which I think is what we had here in the test kitchen. And I had my whipped cream almost done. I'm just gonna go ahead and finish it because I can't wait to eat this. All right, get it to soft peaks. I'm gonna cut myself a little slice. Wow. And if you're watching and you're following along using our hashtag MADGENIUSLIVE, I want you to hit me up and let me know how you eat your flan. And if you decide to make this recipe, if you're gonna cook our cover, the cover of Food and Wine, make sure and tag us, hashtag MADGENIUSLIVE, because you might just be featured on next week's episode. All right, here we go. Just a little bit of whipped cream. I'm gonna go right in for a taste. That is so good. It's really silky, and the caramel is dark enough that you still get that really delicious caramel flavor on the sweet custard. That is good. All right, so like I said, hit us up with hashtag MADGENIUSLIVE, cook the cover, Food and Wine magazine, March issue. And I have one other recipe for you today. It's not from the March issue of Food and Wine. It's a recipe from foodandwine.com and Chef Brian Ng out in California. And I had to show it to you because we were talking about custards. So we have this really genius, really delicious, jiggly flan from the cover of Food and Wine. And I wanted to show you one other brilliant custard dish that you can make very easily at home. And it's basically a gelatin-free pudding. And it's kind of amazing. So here I have 3 cups of heavy cream that I combined with 1 cup of granulated sugar and 2 MAKRUT lime leaves, which are just little leaves that come from a Thai citrus plant. And the fruit actually looks just like little bumpy limes. But it's very aromatic, it's very unique. And I brought it to a simmer and then I let it cook on low for about 15 minutes, just so that the flavor can become really nice. And then I'm just gonna strain it through a fine sieve here. I probably could have used a larger measuring cup, but that's okay. And then also in that 15 minutes, the cream kind of reduced down just a little bit. Not much, because you're not trying to make like a syrup or anything, but you just kind of want to intensify the flavor just a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to add about a tablespoon of lime zest, which I just like to grate on a microplane here. I think I need another one. And then in addition to a tablespoon of the lime zest, I'm going to want to add about a half a cup of juice. So let me go ahead and cut that now. That might be enough, let's check. All right, that's a wimpy lime. I think I got a tablespoon out of that half. Okay, that side was juicier. Although I think it was from a different lime. And this is from Brian Eng, as I mentioned, Brian Eng from California. And I actually, sorry, that was a hard lime. I had to squeeze nice and tight for that one. But this is actually a recipe that I tested years ago here at Food and Wine, and I loved it so much that ever since then it's really inspired me. And it's basically a lime custard. This is kind of a classic technique. It's also called a posset. And basically what you're doing is you're making a custard that doesn't require any gelatin, and it's so genius, I can't even. I really can't. I don't know how it works. It's something scientific. And if you're watching and you understand how it works, please let me know. But somehow the cream and the lime, or the citrus, because you can really use lemon, you can use orange juice, they come together and they set without any sort of gelatin at all. It's like unbelievable. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add half a cup of lime juice to the heavy cream and sugar mixture. And I know that this looks crazy, it really does, that's all it is, but this is the whole recipe. Is the heavy cream, the sugar, the lime juice, some lime zest, and then I'm gonna add a little bit of salt, about a half a teaspoon of salt. Give it a nice whisk. And believe it or not, this custard base, which is the most surprising custard base of all, because it didn't require any sort of it didn't require egg yolks, it didn't require gelatin, anything like that, is just gonna set on its own overnight in the refrigerator. So I'm gonna pour this into, whoa. All right, let me use my right hand. I'm gonna pour it into glasses. And then I'm going to, what I would normally do is I would let these kind of sit out at room temperature for a little bit, just so that you're not putting them into the refrigerator too hot. And then once they've kind of cooled down a little bit, then what I like to do is I like to put a little plastic on top of them to prevent them from forming a skin. And then I put them in the refrigerator overnight. Okay, so I'm gonna let these hang out here, but I have a swap that I wanna show you. Pull it right out of the fridge here. And look at this. I have my pudding. I had another spoon here. Here it goes. And I want to show you this. So Brian, what he does is he actually likes to top this with lychees and a little mint. I don't have lychees, so I'm just going to use mint. You can do, it's very flexible. Just give it a little garnish. And check this out. So if you remember, all this was heavy cream and sugar that I simmered on low for about 15 minutes. I've added some fresh lime juice, some lime zest, and a little bit of salt. Put it in the refrigerator overnight, and check this out. Look at this. I mean, can you see this? This, ladies and gentlemen, is what I call mad genius. There is no gelatin. There was no cooking egg yolks. Just a perfect silky pudding. That's Mad Genius. The flan is Mad Genius. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Mad Genius Tips. It was all about custards, and it was all about this awesome issue of Food and Wine that's available now on newsstands. Also go to foodandwine.com and you can subscribe. Check it out. Check out our story, Cooks and Shooters. It's really great. I'll catch you next week.